Welcome to the podcast that does more than just discuss. Embodying Spirit unpacks key metaphysical and psycho-spiritual theories through heartful discussion and playful debate, and then gives you applications and exercises to bring these concepts into your own life. Isabel Almeida, wellbeing coach, and Tara Love, healing arts facilitator and ceremony guide, have been on the conscious healing train for 40 years between them, studying a range of modalities from yoga and somatic healing to community engagement and philosophy. As best friends, co-creators, dynamic mothers, and dreamers of a better way to live, they have been seeking to live in conscious community for a long time. This is a collection of the conversations around consciousness, connection, and community they've been having for many years. The duo draw on a vast range of theories and schools of thought, claiming the sacred feminine space of relationality between many influences from Hermeticism and Vedic scripture to quantum physics to shamanism and beyond. Also claiming their deeply intuitive inner knowing. They share these deep chats, ideas, and debates openly, bringing new embodied perspectives to ancient wisdom. Each episode begins with a discussion, leading into an immersive exercise and a guided meditation. They share these vital ideas and tools in practical and grounded ways to inspire waves of self-empowered awakening in the world at a time when we need it most. We really hope you enjoy. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to episode 2 of Embodying Spirit. The title of this episode is Mind Creates Matter and the Unconscious Boss. So we're basically moving on from the last episode where we were talking about how we're all connected, how everything is energy. Everything is all part of an interconnected web of energy, and that, even scientifically, when we go in and we zoom in on particles and go further in and in and in, that there isn't really a division, that these ways of measuring things and dividing things are ways that we as humans have used to understand the division of everything, but that actually everything is all part of an interconnected web of energy. And the totality of that interconnected web of energy is what we call spirit or God, and the oneness that is it all. And we are both kind of a segment of that energy and also have all of that within each cell of our body in a kind of holographic effect. And therefore we are all part of the oneness and we are all connected. And following on from that energy, that oneness, that massive all that is what is creating matter. That is how the real world, quote unquote real, the material world that we see, that we are part of, is created. And this takes us back to another Hermetic principle, right? That last time we talked about the law of polarity, and the underlying principle, I suppose, for this episode would be the first Hermetic principle, which is the law of mentalism, which is that all is mind. That mind creates everything, that mind creates matter. And I think that, and from that, the idea that we're creating our own reality, which is something we're going to get a bit more into because it can be really misinterpreted. That's what we're going to talk about in this episode. But ultimately, this idea that all is mind. But the problem that we run into when we interpret that law from where we are now is that when we say all is mind, we think about mind as the ego, as our individual mind, as our conscious mind that we have here. But really what they're talking about in that law is mind as that oneness, as that whole energy field that is everything interconnected. And that is what is creating matter. Like in the story we talked about, right? Like of spirit getting bored or wanting to know itself more, like the kind of myth, but it's like a real thing of it wanting to in growing, in expanding and knowing itself more, to create the idea of other, to create something else in order to be able to know itself, to take itself away from itself, to be able to see, to be able to love, to be able to create other. And therefore, that's how then things are manifested. That's how this 3D reality is created.
Yeah, and actually, a lot of people just see mind as being from the brain, not even the whole self, like, the unconscious mind being the body, and that there is more than even one brain, like the heart mind and the gut mind, and all of that together is like going out into the world. That's our vibration, our individual vibration going out. And that as a whole is the collective vibration of, that's what we're talking, that all exists within the mind. So when we talk about mind creates matter, we're not talking about, this small idea of thought creates matter.
Yes.
That's what's
Yes.
misinterpreted.
Yes. Or let's maybe say like mind with a small m, right? Like, yeah, that our conscious thoughts are our mind with a small m, but that like mind with a capital M, like you say, is our unconscious thoughts. It's our conscious thoughts. It's our gut brain. It's our heart brain. It's our heart mind. It's also the collective unconscious, as as Jung and Freud talked about, this collective unconscious that is connecting actually everyone, which is another great example of the oneness, right? And how we're all connected, the collective unconscious, that we have these collective memories that affect our behavior and our, it's our ancestral consciousness. It's like all of the consciousnesses is put together. That is the mind that is creating.
Right. Where does it start? Where does it end? That's the thing. It's all connected. And that's a really difficult concept for us as individuals to begin to even really understand. And so, people often we're just out here, and, when we don't have this idea, we're just out here as reactors, like really just thinking of ourselves as, things are just happening to us, and we're just completely unaware that we're actually influencing anything.
Yeah, and I guess that the funny that we call it rational, but the rational scientific mindset, the kind of the materialist Newtonian mindset that we've been talking about already, that which we're kind of in the heyday of, or coming out of the heydays of, but which school is still teaching us in, has led us to believe that we're just part of this kind of chaotic material world, and that we are just tiny, I love it, like tiny creatures crawling on the planet's face, like at the mercy of these giant kind of forces of nature and random acts of violence or of beauty, but that we have no real connection to it or control over it, and that we're at the mercy of these great forces. Or conversely, if you still have a kind of, sorry, it's a really old school religious, but dogmatic religious kind of viewpoint, that there's this giant god or gods in the sky that are controlling everything, and again, you don't have any control over it, right? That you're all part of this crazy, these forces that are just so much larger than you and unconnected to you, right?
Or even that we are at the top of the hierarchy, and we're the most important, more important than any other consciousness as well. That, that trees are like there to be cut down, and, that they hold no wisdom, and that we hold all the wisdom from our little conscious minds, working all out. And that right now, like, we're just finding things out, and we're at the pinnacle of things that have actually always been known, anciently, and that we're that we're really coming from this top down way of thinking.
And that the world is something for us to figure out how to control as well, right? Like that the more we can figure it out, the more that we can control it, the more that we can understand it with this science and rationality, that the more we can be in control and in charge and win as well, right? But it's so overwhelming because it's so huge, and how could we possibly do that, right?
Yeah, and that's why we've even had like the whole new thought era, where it was this idea that like now we're working out that we do have some responsibility out here, and that we are part of the creation, but that we do that from our thoughts, and that we're out here saying yes, so we have to be really aware of everything we're thinking and everything we're just every aspect of everything, controlling everything, in order for us to be able to now have the lives we desire. Like it's all coming from the brain still.
Right. So this is where we're talking about like the law of attraction and, manifestation, which is like a big kind of pop psychology thing, right? Like, oh, you manifest it. You've got to, if you think it, then you can make it happen, which is kind of the tip of the iceberg, quite literally in a way, in terms of what we're talking about, because mind does create matter. So our conscious thoughts do affect what happens to us, right? Like, and this is where maybe to kind of take it down to the real basics of mind creates matter, even in the conscious way, like, or in a way that we can see it, that we know. For example, there have been tests to show, right, like that lucky people that think that they're lucky are generally luckier in life. Not generally, they are, right? Like, if you think like a personal thing for me, something that I found really radical in understanding this, like how powerful my mind is, even my conscious mind, is that my mum always had a thing about weight, and she always used to say, oh, I look at an apple and I put on weight, and I also then inherited that because I felt like, oh yeah, no, I have the same metabolism as my mum, and and so it's that thing of then it manifests, right? So then I've struggled with weight in my life, but actually and that's what it comes from. It's not really to do with metabolism, it's to do with the thought process. And you can see that people that don't have a thought on weight and food can eat often what they like, and that they're not going to gain that weight, right? Like, if you think yourself, like, if you think that you're going to be poor, if you believe that you come from a poor background, it's really going to manifest itself in a poverty mentality as well, right?
But that's what makes it so difficult. But because we, the observer effect, we actually influence what we see. So that's why we find it so difficult to understand actually how powerful we are and how much we impact on reality.
Let's take a moment there to unpack that. So the observer effect is a quantum physics term, right? Like, I mean, it's a whole experiment. Do you want to talk into that a little bit?
I believe we spoke about it in the first episode to do with the slit experiment. Did we not mention that, with the particles and the waves?
Right. So depending on whether you want to observe something, if in the experiment they observed it as a particle, it acted like a particle, and if they observed it as a wave, it acted like a wave. So it's the and both thing.
Yeah.
That it can be whatever you observe. So therefore, what it's saying is, because we really believe that thing of like, we are so separated, we are different. Like, if I can stand here and look at something, and it doesn't matter that I'm standing here and looking at it, it's going to do the same thing. But that's just not true. That the observer, literally, that's why it's called the observer effect, has an impact on the outcome of what is happening.
Yeah.
Just by looking at something, just by putting your energy, your attention, which again shows how we're all connected, but just that fact that we are affecting everything with our being, with our consciousness, with our mind.
Exactly. And that leads on to that experiment, the Masaru Emoto experiment with the water and the molecules.
I love that experiment.
Yeah. And it's like, so the experiment was that when they took water and then they projected hate onto the water, then the water formed molecules all discombobulated, the way that it looked.
And when you say projected, what do you mean?
As in, they literally just like, sent their emotion of hate, like hate, and spoke hate with all their being into the water. Then it sort of came out really discombobulated and, ugly, to use a better word. And then when they did the same thing, but with love, and then they just poured love into the water, then the water crystallized perfectly, just like snowflakes.
So beautiful.
Yeah. And it's, this is what we're doing, which just shows this is what we're doing to our bodies. I mean, actually, the majority of us is water. So if you can think of it like, if we're having loving thoughts, then we're crystallizing this love vibration. And then this love vibration is going out into the world and creating more love. And, that's why it's so important, just to mention, to be in like gratitude, because gratitude and love are of the same vibration, right? So if you want to create a great life, be grateful. And and
yes.
So there's that's why we say, like, actually it's so important to become aware of, like, what are those unconscious thoughts? It's not so much to control every thought, but it's to really to come back into your heart, so that you're really creating from a heartful place. And from there, actually, they become, it's easy. It's not this idea of, being like, on top of everything and controlling, and, it's really just about flowing from that sort of pure consciousness.
And you can see how easily it can kind of create a catch-22 as well, right? Because if you're having ugly thoughts, then ugly things are going to happen, and then you're going to have more ugly thoughts, and then ugly things are going to happen, and there's that kind of snowball effect as well. And it's quite difficult to sit in a place of gratitude when things that you perceive as not nice or not good are happening as well, right? And that's when we get into the kind of complications of the whole manifestation pop psychology, because it's just like, oh, just think great things and then great things will happen. And even though that's not wrong, as you said, like as the water experiment shows, if we put positive emotions and energy towards something, then we get a positive outcome. So we know now, scientifically proven, that we are affecting things. But, and there's a big but, only 10% of our consciousness is conscious. Of our mind is conscious, and 90% is unconscious. So you can be sitting there manifesting your little heart out of like, wealth, 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 thinking that all the time. But if in your unconscious mind, another part of mind, you have a poverty mentality, because of many reasons, the circumstances you were born into, your ancestral pain body, the thoughts that your parents put into your mind from as a child, then it's gonna have a negative impact, or it's gonna have an effect. Is the point, right? It's like, it makes me think of how, I always wanted to be an actor growing up, but then my mum and my gran, because my whole family was in theatre, and they were always like, oh, there's 98% unemployment, it's really hard to get work as an actor. And I saw that impact, how hard I found it to get a job as an actor, and then there's a whole other story as to why that didn't work out, and all for the best in the end. But it's just so interesting to see that those unconscious thoughts and those patterns. And that's where I love Gabor Mate, because he talks about how he takes, and this is, I mean, what we're talking about now, we've come from a Hermetic principle, but it's also deeply entrenched in Buddhism, in many different ancient belief systems, right? The idea that we create our reality, that we are creating our world, that we are, through our own consciousness, creating that which we experience, right? And I love what Gabor Mate says, who has now become a household name. I'm sure you've all heard of him, but what a legend. And that is that, yes, we create our own reality, but before we create our world, the world creates us. Because when we're little, all of the experiences that we have from when we're in utero, all of those experiences that we have as we're babies, as we're tiny, as we're infants, all of the words that are spoken to us, all of the love that we're given or not given, all of the kind of rules that we are embedded with consciously and subconsciously by our parents and our caregivers in the world that we're in, creates that reality from which we then start to create our reality, right?
Yeah, because the unconscious the unconscious mind is said to be the body. So it's held in the body. So if we never unblock or release from the body, then actually, as much as we're using those thoughts and we're desiring something from the brain, we're unable to move into and believe that, to be and live that every day becomes impossible, because the body is pulling us back into these unconscious patterns, and that's going ahead of us. So that's why it's so important to do somatic practices, and whether that's like meditation or working with others, working different ways that we can work with the body to, even dance, just be able to clear the way or shake it, so that we can start more afresh and actually get rid of these like tensions in the body. And actually that makes me go on to think about like also like a lot of the disease that we have in the body is also created by the mind. They kind of feed each other as well, don't they? So
right. I mean, that's, again, God, I'm going to talk about Gabor Mate so much in this series, I can tell already. Thank you, Gabor. But his book, When the Body Says No, Exploring the Stress Disease Response, like that for me was so radical in really cementing this understanding that mind creates matter, that mind creates all, that we are manifesting everything through our thought. Because he, as a as an MD, as a medical doctor, unpacks all of these diseases that we've seen as genetically inherited: heart disease, cancer, ALS, like motor neuron disease, those kind of things. And he takes it back to, through interviewing these people that have terminal illness, into their childhood experiences, and unpacks how they have created trauma in the body through their experiences of trauma as a child. And to quote him, he talks about how trauma is not the act of what happens to you, but it's how you interpret what happens to you. So you could have the same experience as somebody else, as a sibling, but it's how you interpret what happens, how you receive it, and how you then change your way of behaving away from your natural way of behaving in order to be loved as a child. I'm not going to just paraphrase all of Gabor's work, because you can go and listen to his podcast. But that understanding that basically we are creating those dis-eases, those blockages within our body through our thoughts, through not being aligned with ourselves, through not loving ourselves whole, through creating holding patterns, through creating tension, through creating I'm like pinching my fists here, because it's like that feeling of like, oh, I can't be myself, so I'm going to stop myself from behaving in the way that is in my full flow, and that's going to cause tension and blockage in the body. It makes me think also of cranial sacral therapy, which I'm trained in as well, and that's exactly how we understand it as well. Is that idea that when you're born, you receive a primary vibration, which is your vibration, which is your soul song. And, to put it poetically, you can take it as a metaphor, if you like. And that then through all of your experiences in life, from in utero, through birth, through everything, physical or emotional or spiritual trauma, there's different holding patterns that are created through that, different tensions, different blockages, different kind of creases, as it were, even within the membranes of the body, within the fluids within the body, within all of, like the water experiment, like you said, creating all these different patterns that then can create blockages. And those vibrations get stuck and stagnate. And as we know, stagnation, aliveness, energy is movement, is vibration. And when there's stagnation, that leads to disease and ultimately death, So those patterns are held in the body and cause tension and cause dis-ease. But ultimately, yes, okay, there can be physical traumas, but they also, a lot of it comes from mind, comes from thought.
And that's the beauty of the body. I mean, literally, it's working for us. It's not working against us. So as this disease appears, that's actually within your consciousness in the body. It's showing you there's something for you to work through as well, and bringing it to your attention. So
it's talking to you, right?
Yeah. And so at that point, if you're able to really sit with it rather than reject it, because obviously in our world, what do? We medicate. We go out and we say, okay, I'm going to use this medicine to get rid of this, and then it creates another problem somewhere. And so we're never able to really come back into ourselves and back into the ease. And, so that's really, so it's just amazing. It's just amazing. Our body is just amazing.
Yeah. I feel like whatever, it's great. It's great what we're talking about. I'm like, I'm sure we've got a whole episode about this coming up at some point, going into, the beauty of the body and somatic healing. But that's why we came to it as well, was that idea that in order, going back to the topic of mind creating matter, that we can't just focus on the conscious thoughts. We can't just sit and kind of have a mantra meditation of what it is that we want. Not to say that mantra doesn't work. Of course, it's great. And obviously, as we repeat things in mantra, then they can penetrate into our unconscious as well. So we take all the modalities. But what we're saying is just saying to yourself in your conscious mind, a thought, giving yourself those conscious thoughts isn't necessarily going to instantly shift what's happening in your reality. So you can't just be, oh, but I've been thinking about being rich. I've been telling myself I'm rich for, 5 years every day before I go to bed, and I'm still not rich, because there's so much held in the unconscious as well. right? Like there's so much held in the membranes, in the tissues. And if you're not doing the somatic practices, and if you're not doing the deeper work to unpick those incongruencies, those blockages, those tensions in the body, then that's probably why it's not happening. Plus the fact that when we say mind creates matter, we're talking about so many levels of mind. As we said, we've got our conscious mind, we've got our unconscious mind, where all this trauma is held and all of these patterns are held. We've also got the greater mind, the greater unconscious. We've got the collective unconscious, as I said. We've got all of these other levels of consciousness. And as again we said in the first episode, we can't be all of it, otherwise we'd be God. So it's not as simple as I manifest a car and it just appears, because we're not it all. We have the oneness within us, but we are not all of the oneness, right?
Yeah, we've come to be our own vibration. We've come to be our unique vibration in the world. And that's what we're really saying, is about coming back to that, is where we are able to manifest with ease, rather than this idea of, oh, what do I think will make me happy? And therefore, then concentrating on that. And I mean, obviously there's lots of people use vision boards. I mean, that's one way that people manifest. And it's not that doesn't work really well, but it's when it's connected really to, a deeper desire, that's when we see it manifest. And, it's not just everything and anything. So, really that's why it's important to just always do the work and to go a little bit deeper into the self. And just to talk about mantras, obviously there's mantras that are vibrationally aligned and that actually do heal on a physical body, heal us on a physical, in the physical as well.
Like the chakra mantra that I do every morning with the bead sounds of each chakra, which is a somatic,
which is a somatic healing, exactly. So it's more the case of like certain affirmations. It's not, if it's just coming from the brain, then it's not going to move you into that higher vibration. It has to be felt from the whole body. It has to be connected.
I love but I love two little stories around this idea, to go to the simplicity of mind creating matter, of one being that a phrase we always use, which is where attention goes, energy flows. So even though we're saying, there's many different layers and elements to the mind, and the mind with capital M, there is still that deep understanding that where we put our attention, that will manifest. And that's why it's always really good to be a for rather than against person. I think that's what really triggered my leaving protest work, and activism, because I realized in the world of activism, we were working really against often. And when you're against, the universe doesn't hear negatives. That's what they say, right? Like that you are then still putting your attention towards the problems. You're still putting your attention towards all of the pain and all of the suffering, and in dwelling on it, thinking of it, putting your energy into those ideas, even if it's with outrage against it, even just that outrage in itself, you're putting your energy into a space of outrage, then you're just manifesting outrage and pain and suffering, actually, somehow. Not to say
there's obviously layers. I mean, like you have to move through, like, so for instance, of course, if there's anger to be felt, it's not that we don't want you to express these things, or it's like you're supposed to be in one vibration. It's just the case of being aware of, oh, actually, is this work that I'm doing, or this idea that I'm putting out, actually, is it aligned with the result that I'm desiring? So, and often, sometimes that isn't so clear, isn't it? When people get caught up, in the, no, but I don't like that, and I don't, and it's the word don't, the not, that actually the universe doesn't hear.
Yeah.
Right. So
well, it's just such a negative vibration as well, right? So it's like you're putting a lot of energy into a negative vibration.
Therefore, you're emitting a negative vibration. That's
And that is not to say that we can't work at creating the beautiful world that we know is possible, to quote Charles Eisenstein. But but it's more like, how do we work in the vibration of for? How do we put our energy towards creating something more beautiful, rather than towards or against something we don't like, because we're still putting our energy then into that thing. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was the story of the the wolf that you feed, which I think is a myth from I don't know where, sorry. But this beautiful story of being I think the grandmother and a grandchild anyway, and saying we have two wolves inside of us, one which is kind and loving, and the other that is angry and hateful, and you are half of each, that you have both of these wolves inside of you, and which wolf will you become? Which wolf do you think you'll become? And the answer is that which you feed. That understanding again that we have it all inside of us, and therefore we do have the power to choose where we want to put our energy. Again, with that caveat that there's a lot of compassion that we have to have for ourselves and for each other as to why we are the way we are as well. It's not to use it as a way to hate on yourself, because I think people get scared, right, when they hear this. Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm creating everything myself. Like, I create with my mind. I create with, I'm empowered. Like, it's deeply empowering on the one hand, right? Like, oh, mind creates, I'm creating everything. But it's also deeply terrifying, because then it's like, then I have no blame that I can give to anybody else out there, because I'm manifesting all of this, right? Even though, again, with the caveat. And that's the point. That is the point, is that caveat, that it's like, yes, I'm manifesting it, but also I am so much my unconscious as well, right? And there's so many other parts of the greater consciousness at play. But still, it is also empowering to know that you are manifesting it, that you are creating so much with your conscious and unconscious thoughts. And therefore, it's within your power also to shift it, right?
Well, that's what they say. Like, the first step is to become aware that you create everything, then to become aware that you create nothing, which can sound like such a paradox, right? Because actually it is that unconscious self that is creating, it's guiding you. You are being, you've come in a certain vibration, and actually, the vibration you come when you're a baby to the vibration you die you're still the same energy. So you don't gain more energy as you go along. You're still the same energetic being that you were and that you live. That's why when people are when they become older, they look back and say, well, I've always felt like this. So, they don't actually feel themselves necessarily getting older. Their soul remains the same. So of course you've come in a creative form, and, so it's not so much, that's why it's more a case about understanding that you're empowered with where you place your attention. That's actually where your power is. And if you're out here feeling, if you're completely unaware, and just going through life unconsciously, then of course you're going to see yourself as a victim. But then once you understand that actually you're a part of the conscious creation, then you can relax. Because actually in that moment, then you're working with what it is that you're desiring. But things are going to happen, and then you're going to be like, oh, wow. Like, it's not that you're going to think like, oh, I wanted that to happen. It's like, actually, oh, yes, that happened from within me almost. You understand what I'm saying? Like, for instance, like, I know that I've had dreams where the dream has happened. I've seen it in a dream, and then it's happened in real life. I didn't create the dream in my head, but the dream manifested in front of me. So this idea that actually I'm out here making everything happen isn't quite 100%. There is a case of actually, there's certain things that are just for you that are happening. And of course, where you place your attention, whether you're seeing life as for you or against you, means that the ride can be bumpy or can be smooth. And so I suppose in this understanding that that mind creates matter, and that we, are part of the creation of our reality, it's a case of that all of this that is happening is for us. It's our experience that we've come to be a part of.
And the vibration, because if we say, if we take that understanding of mind with a capital M that we've kind of unpacked a little bit here today, then that really is your vibration, right? Mind is the vibration, is the oneness, is the primary vibration of the universe of which you're a part, and that it's the vibration that is creating the reality. So then always that it's something about your vibration that's creating what's happening to you, and that you are both responsible for it and not responsible for it, because Yeah, I mean, then we get into like, did you choose the body you were born into? You know, which I know we both believe, but that's maybe for another episode, another day. But just that understanding that there's such a complexity within you and within your vibration as well. But where it becomes empowering, before I kind of, you know, spin off on too many threads here, is that understanding that if mind creates matter, then whatever is happening to me, or like whatever's happening in my world, is connected to the vibration that I'm in. And therefore, I can also affect it. But not just that I can affect it, but that I can learn more about myself by analyzing it and by looking into it as well. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, okay. And this is why, you know, and the other reason why we know this is true is because things happen to the same thing happens to us again and again, right? Like the fact that we, like, you know, always end up in the same kind of relationships, for example. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not coincidence that you always end up with, let's not say you here, Tara, let's like fess up, you know, like why I always end up in relationships with men who are not committed, you know, that are not able to support me, that are that see me as too much as well, like too big an energy. Why? Because embedded in my vibration is that understanding that men are not there to support you, that men and that your energy is too much. Because why? Because I was told I was too much as a child, but also because I never had a father to support me, because my father died but he wasn't there. And also that men can be dangerous because I was conceived through rape. So that's just in my vibration. And I can't freaking blame myself for that and be like, oh, well, now you create, you know, mind creates matter, you create your realities. Now you've created a reality where you can't find a man that's going to love you. Like, no, it's not about blame. We always want to go into blame. But it is about understanding that there's something in my vibration that is stopping me from manifesting an awesome man. It's not the fact, as I thought for many, many years, that all men are bastards and that there's no decent men out there. Sorry, guys. I love you now. I do. And I always did, actually, but I just thought maybe they weren't for me, you know. But it's like, and that's also where it's empowering, because before then I would have been like, oh, well, maybe I'm just not lovable, or, you know, maybe I'm not good enough. But as I do the healing work, I understand, no, I'm flipping great. There's lots to love about me. And more to the point, there's so many women out there who have got men, you know, who are just as great as me or whatever, you know. So it can't be about that. It's about something that I am vibrating in. And even I stop myself from saying something I'm doing, because it sounds like then it's conscious. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not. But it is about my vibration. And therefore it is empowering for me to know that. But not to be angry with myself about it and be like, oh, well, you've got to go manifest more, you know, better with your men. No, I know that what I have to do is do the somatic healing. I know that through the cranial sacral and other things, that vibration is held in my body, and that by working through it physically and mentally, and through dream work and many of the modalities that we're going to talk more about in this podcast, through meditation, through sitting, through observing, through simply the observer effect. That's the beauty of meditation. You're just observing, but through observing, you are shifting things. By observing those thoughts that come up of unworthiness, allowing them to pass through me, by just being in that, I am shifting things and allowing myself to vibrate slightly differently, come back to a pure vibration of self that is going to allow that beautiful man to walk into my life, taking applications.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I like to say, like, it's not your fault, it's your thought. And I don't mean thought from as in, actually, that comes from your feeling, because the thought comes from the feeling. So it's exactly that. It's that thing of like, oh, actually, you know, you're coming back to, well, actually, what is that uncomfortable feeling that I have? And where does that come from? And that is, you know, doing the work to really understand actually where these ideas are generated from, so that you can begin to really align with, oh, actually, well, what is the truth here then? Because if my thought is, you know, if my thought comes from, like, you know, men are no good, and that comes from a feeling of unsafe with men, and I know that there's a lady over there and she's having a great relationship with somebody and feels completely safe, and I know that my desire is that I want to feel safe. And that's where I can then start to align with, oh, okay, well, how do I, feel safe, and what does that look like, and move towards a vibration of safety. And that's really what we're talking about, is by becoming aware, once again, like you said about meditation, what does that allow for us? It allows for us to become aware of, what's going on within us, and bring us more into a state of calm. Because quite naturally, when we are not so caught up in the egoic mind of ourselves, thinking that we are these thoughts and we are these feelings, because obviously there's just loops that then happen from that, we just drop down into more of a peaceful observer, more of an allowing state. And that, coupled with a knowing of our desire, therefore allows us to manifest more of what we want. So that's really what we're talking about, is like actually moving away from this is just the way it is, and moving into oh, okay, so this is what I've been experiencing. These are the patterns that I've been creating my reality. And actually, this is really what I would like to align with. And what does that look like? And then moving from there. And that's a process.
And not falling into the pit of blame of like, no. This is all because of my vibration. Now I've created all of this, right? Because I do think that people really struggle when you start to say, oh, you create your own reality. Mind creates matter. Like, that people start to freak out a bit, right? In terms of like, oh, what are you saying that, I did, being abused as a child, for example. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. And that's why forgiveness is such a big part of, manifesting from the heart as well. It's to give first, right? I like to say that, like, forgiveness, to forgive, to give first. So it means, like, obviously you're having to look around and understand that, well, I think we touched on this as well, understanding that everybody is like, so for instance, of course, whatever happens beforehand happened to you from an unconscious source as well. Like, that wasn't their heart's desire. It may be like hurt people. So that was a byproduct of that. So yours is to firstly forgive yourself for anything that you've manifested. I mean, if you're here having a relationship that is less than your ideal, it's definitely not to beat yourself up and say, like, why don't? Of course, it's because you don't have that imprint within you why this has been manifested. So then if you were going to have, be hard and unloving with yourself, I mean, how would that possibly work to get you closer to a loving relationship? Of course, it would be to be coming back to yourself and saying, being compassionate, really, to be compassionate with yourself, and to really be able to sit with yourself and say, oh, okay, well, what would it look like to be loving with myself then? Because, I mean, all of our manifestations that we're upset about are the result of us not being loving enough with ourselves. For instance, if we have no money, right, because we've got a poor mentality, say, based on our programming as a child or our experience or whatever, that's because we're unaware how valuable we are. We're unaware that actually we're worthy of all of these great things in life. So for its first thing is to really come into that and to actually be like, yeah, okay, like, so, what does that look like? And so be able to sit in appreciation for oneself and to grow that self-value. And once you grow that self-worth and self-value, naturally, then you start to see that actually you're attracting more wealth because, value, whether it's personal value or, money, they're the same thing. It's the same energy, because that's what it is. It's the energetic vibration of. It's not mind equals matter, means that money isn't just this piece of paper. Money means value, and value is what you're lacking, and that's how we begin to untangle. That's why.
And a lot of us don't even realize that we don't have that sense of value, because if we're not sitting in meditation and listening, I mean, some of us, the thoughts are loud enough that they come shouting through regardless during the day, but yeah, I mean, it's even to take one step back and say we have to even begin there, right, to start to listen to what are the thoughts that are coming into our minds on a regular basis. What are the feelings that we're having regularly, and being able to observe them and realizing those, because like you said, it's what we receive. And it's like, I think it's also important to remember, because I think there's a lot of like, but why would I manifest this? Why would I come in this vibration? Why, and as you say, ancestrally, it's been passed down. but it's also this acceptance that we are all perfectly imperfect and perfectly imperfect, right? Like that there's nothing going wrong. Again, it goes back to that law of polarity as well, right? That we have all the good and all the bad within us, that we have it all, but that also, going back to that initial metaphor of us all being spirit, all being all, not metaphor, but reality, and that in wanting to know what we are more in the oneness, that we have to take ourselves outside of ourselves. So we create, as spirit, we've created these obstacles, we've created these different vibrations, we've come in a unique vibration that has a whole host of lower and higher vibrations within it to get to know itself more. So this whole journey, this is what we believe, along with many of the great teachings. This journey is one of exploration and figuring out, oh wow, this is a reflection of my vibration. This is a mirror world. Oh, this is a distortion which I have the power to understand, to see, and to shift. Right? Through my actions being thoughts and feelings as much as they are physical actions, right? Yeah. And that I just keep coming back to compassion, that we have, it's not punishment. It's not a like hell, heaven situation where we're being punished. Even, I keep wanting to go into past lives and kind of, what we've brought forward, but just to touch on that, it's not also that you're being punished for anything you've done. It's, we believe, something that you've chosen to come into, or spirit, as your full spirit, we've created to be able to grow more and learn more. And these distortions within our energy field are things for us to kind of unpick. Like it's a game. It's like a big puzzle. And it might sound really flippant to say it's a game. It's a game to have had these horrific things happen to me, or these terrible life experiences. But once we realize that we're all energy vibrating and we're all growing and learning, then actually we can understand it more as a game.
Yeah, and we don't all that's the funny thing is as well, some things we put above others. Like, it's like if someone's got a lot of money, we see that as a good thing, right? But some people have got lots of money, but they've got no happiness as well. So there's also that understanding that actually it's not that we've all come for the same experience and that there's this one tick box over there. So, yeah, some people have come for a great relationship. Some people have come to be completely celibate, and like that's how they're going to know themselves more as well. So it's also like, you have to look within. You have to really, to know anything, you have to look within.
And that's when we come back down to that, like the distortion that we're living in these days of the material world being the world, right? And that everything is material. And that's why we value material wealth above all other kinds of wealth, like community wealth, relationship wealth, like intellectual. There's so many kinds of wealth, but because we're so set on the material being the reality, that's the one that we favor and put above others. But actually, we all have, as we say through the law of polarity, we all have all the vibrations within us, and each of us is a unique expression of all of these vibrations. I almost see it like a kind of like endless keyboard that goes off in all directions, like this massive instrument that has an infinite number of notes, and that each of us is a different chord, like complex chord on this instrument, so there's never one chord that's the same, and like, so some of those notes become, might be an expression of material wealth, and some of them might be an expression of physical pain, and some of them, and all of the shades of each of those things as well, because and each of us is that expression, and it's for us to figure out, we don't have to stay jammed in this chord. Actually, we can play it once we tune into the fact that we are also the hands that are playing those chords. We are actually the whole flipping instrument as well, and not just as one chord. But it's not to vilify ourselves for being that one chord or coming into that chord, because that's the fucking game.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Like we are the puzzle and the piece of the puzzle. We make up the whole picture.
Yeah, so. Exactly. And we're the freaking hands doing the puzzle as well, right?
Yeah.
We are it all. But as we said last episode, you don't get born knowing that you are it all. That is the exchange we make when we are born, to forget that we are the hands doing the puzzle and the piece, you know? And we just come into consciousness as a small being, thinking we're just this little piece, and going, why the hell am I this piece? And what is this puzzle? And who are the hands? Are there hands?
Yeah.
And not thinking that there are hands anyway. Just think you're a big jumbled piece. Well, I'm taking this metaphor too far now. A big jumbled puzzle in a bag.
Yeah. No, but really, that's the thing. That's why it's so important to understand that, you know, it's all a gift. And, you know, sometimes you don't know why that gift is a gift at that point as well. Like, you know, so you might think that something's going wrong, but once you understand that it's all a gift, you know, and understand that actually at some other point, you might understand why this had to materialize for you on your path to actually, therefore, you know, become aware of this over here. So once you're in that kind of conscious understanding of, yes, you're creating your own reality out here and you're a part of that, but you're also receiving, and so you're also a part of that. You become more allowing, but yet you become more conscious. So you take a lot of responsibility then. Well, actually, I'm not going to put anything into the world that I don't desire being in the world. And that's what helps lift up your compassion for yourself and others, because you're like, oh, actually, I don't need to understand how this came about or the end result to in this moment be able to be heartful. And really, that's how we'll really create our life in the most purposeful manner, is to be heartful. So, yeah.
I know we definitely have an episode called Everything's a Gift. So before we finish all episodes of our podcast in this second episode alone, I think it's a beautiful place to bring this episode to an end. And obviously stay tuned for the meditation and the exercise, where we're going to unpack a little bit more this idea and understanding of how mind creates matter and the unconscious boss. So give your unconscious boss a break, and may you go forward in the world with a little bit more knowing of the beauty of the power you have to manifest all, and the forgiveness to know that it's also a lifelong journey to figure it out.
Great.
Lots of love, people.
Hi again. Okay, so today's exercise is to find something positive and negative that you have manifested and trace it back to its roots. So, for instance, what do you always say? Like, oh, I always, or they always, you know, like, and in a positive way. So what comes true for you? Something that you believe, that you say, I always, and you can see that that's been manifested in your life time and time again. Or on the other hand, something negative, an idea that you have about something that, you know, they always say this or they always do this, and then you've seen that in your life repeat over and over again. What I'll do is I'm going to have a quick session with Tara where she can be the guinea pig, just so you can...
That's just a pig. I don't know what a guinea pig...
Just so you can have a good example of how this works. So, Tara, let's start with you. Let's start with the positive or the negative?
It's always easier to think of negative things, isn't it?
Great. Okay, so what comes up for you? What is something that...
Well, we've already talked about my my appalling relationship history, so I don't know if we should talk about that. So something I think that's come up more recently in my life, I've become aware of, is like having like people taking advantage of me, like being too nice, I guess, maybe, like quote unquote nice. That's a whole thing we can unpack, but like so I have a little flatlet that I rent out excuse me, at the back of my house, and it's been like quite a few people coming through there who have just kind of taken a bit of advantage, you know, like that's just one example, but kind of just that it's like I just find myself in conversations with people where they're like, again, you know, like, what is that? Like, why do people think? And now I'm putting it on them. So I realize it's got to be about me. You know, what is it in me then that allows people to cross boundaries that I feel like I've been quite clear with as well. Do you know what I mean? Around paying money, coming into my space when I, have made it clear that it's not their space, it's my space, or, yeah.
Yeah. So, and what is your belief then about, sharing your stuff with others? Like,
So I think there's a few things that come up. I think one of the things is around, like my white guilt, my kind of believing that I have privilege or whatever, that therefore I need to give to others. Like, that I have a lot or whatever, even though, just to clarify, I've come from a middle class background. And have always worked, you know what I mean? I'm not a trust fund kid or anything, but that feeling that that I need to give. I was always, and I guess like being brought up to be nice, like that idea of being the nice girl or whatever, and needing to be loved, I guess, is what it comes down to as well, right? Like, go on.
And so, like, let's just go back then. Like, so where did this first come up? Obviously, not the flatlet, because that's something, but where do you remember first experiencing somebody, taking advantage, or you not being able to set your boundaries?
Oh, well, the first thing that comes to mind is going back to good old men, and having, I guess my own experience of being raped when I was 16 is a great, great, maybe not the right word, but is a very strong example of advantage being taken, not being able to assert my boundaries properly then.
And do you remember, like, going back to that time, like, as you say, not being able to set your boundaries, what it was before? I mean, this is a very difficult conversation, but before you found yourself in that vulnerable situation, what the thought was that allowed you to, go along with that moment?
No, because actually, and this is really interesting in terms of what we were talking about in terms of things being unconscious, is that like I wasn't actually even conscious. I mean, there are events that led up to it happening, but like, I was actually asleep. I'd been drinking, but I was asleep, when the whole kind of thing went down, like in terms of the act, as it were, but I guess leading up to it, thinking about that, like not being able to say no, just not being able to say no to kind of being asked. Oh God, it's a bit deep, isn't it? But it was my teacher, so it was like being asked to stay back and listen to, be in a one-on-one situation with that person, being asked to support that person, being, and not being able to say no, I don't want to. Like not being able to say no, and that is a big thing for me actually, like not being able to say no. Like, that no is bad, that no is naughty, that no is defiant, that
what you're desiring is unimportant compared to what the other person wants.
To be accommodating. Like if someone wants something, then you have to be nice, like you have to give them what they want. Whether that's your body or your house or your home or your time, I suppose as well. I mean, and obviously, that was when I was like the rape was when I was 16, but when did it start before then, I guess, is that what we're trying to figure out?
Well, it's just really what is the root of it, and the root, as you say, it's the root of not being able to say no, that you're not important, that what you want, that what you desire isn't important, and that what the other person, accommodating them, is more important. So it's the same thing then if we, I'm sure if we were to go further back, we would find then that's always been, the issue is that actually, what Tara thinks is important needs to be overridden because there's no space for that.
I think it's that be a good girl, isn't it? I think that's also part of the patriarchy as well, right? Like and I always have to clarify this when I say part of patriarchy, that it's not part of man-hating in any way at all. Like we're all victims and we're all subject to the patriarchy, let me say that. And it doesn't serve anybody, but particularly in this context as women, like that idea that we have to be good and smile and be nice, and that saying no, I don't want to do that, somehow is even I can't even say it without saying it with an aggressive way. Do you know what I mean? Like, because that's how I've judged it to be, and just be like, no, I'd rather not, thank you, like just like that. And I guess also, bless my mum, but growing up as a single, she was a young single mum, and having and she was working a lot, and there weren't other kids around as well, right? So it was like that idea of already me being too much in a way, right? Because it's like, I'm a child and I want to do fun things, and I want to, and so saying no or whatever, it's like, no, come on, be play well, be nice, do what the adults want you to do, because you need to fit into the adult world, and you need people to look after you that are not going to necessarily be paid a lot, or you know what I mean, or like there's lots of kids because you're a childminder and you have to do what everyone else wants to do because that's just what you do, like I guess that it probably comes down to that.
And
my whole life story, yeah, it's great.
And but and it made me think, like, if we could go back further and actually to your mother, could you say that was also a pattern of behaviour that she had, where she was unable to say no, and that she had found
100%.
Right.
Yeah, no, my mum was, yeah. And that, I mean, and obviously the story, but we get deep there because my mum died of cancer at 48, which goes back to the, why I found that book by Gabor Mate about the body saying no so important, because it helped me to understand that cancer in her body was caused by her own, pain from her childhood, and again, not even to blame my gran, but, it just is intergenerational or ancestral trauma patterns, as it were. But she never said no. She was 100%, to the point where my family used to get annoyed with her and call her a martyr, because she just gave and gave and gave and gave, and never to herself, and never loved herself, only loved everyone else around her, and would never say no. No, I mean, she herself was raped. That's how I was conceived, and there were, and that was when she was in a but she, again, we can go backwards. That must have been something in her childhood where she also felt that she couldn't say no. And we don't know I don't know enough about what happened in her childhood. But again, being a little girl growing up in the 70s, also in the TV and theatre world, as a small child around parents that are having to, be a certain way and act in a certain way and keep up with the Joneses and all of that kind of thing, like I'm sure there was an element of, like, definitely, I know my grand still says children should be seen and not heard, kind of, that sort of, and definitely has that attitude of, like, you have to conform, right? You just have to conform. Yeah.
So we can see that actually it's been a pattern within your ancestry that's played out now for you, up until, and still carries on, okay? So, but if we were to then say here now, and we were to be moving forward, just to bring it to a close, what would we then understand? What would we desire for your mother? Let's say that, like, if you would say, what would you have wanted your mother to do for herself? Would to be able to have the...
It's a funny one, isn't it, though? Like, well, I'm glad she didn't say no, because then I wouldn't be born. Gotta laugh. No, go on. Sorry, what did you say?
Wasn't my joke. Yeah, but it would be to have the self-love and the self-respect, and to be able to say, actually, I choose me in this moment, and to move forward in that way and saying, actually, what I desire is important. So obviously for you moving forward, and you also have a child moving forward, of course, then you want to be able to teach her something new. So, actually, even if we start now with the flatlet, and come back to this point, it's like, actually, if we're now looking to say, actually, yeah, I'm going to have new boundaries. Those boundaries are going to start with not what is good for so-and-so, what do they need, but actually to be strong enough to be like, actually, I'm going to say, well, what is going to work for me? What do I need? And to say that it's not against anybody. There's no, there's nothing to be ashamed of there. And actually, and the more that you then start to align with that idea, the more then that, you'll start to see the results in life that you're desiring. And that's how we then start to move through that awareness of actually, you know, well, what has created this pattern and what will now create a new pattern. And we can see that both. We're moving on to the positive things in your life. Like let's take something now that you just manifest really well.
Yeah. Before we do though, I just want to say, like, it's you know, that feels, you know, to conclude on also what we're talking about in the podcast, it's like, okay, great. So it's like, so now I understand why it happens. But then it's like, how do I practice that? Because it's like, okay, cool. So yeah, in terms of bringing, like, just so happens I'm looking for someone now for the flat. And it's like, okay, so being able to say no to people that don't fit what it is that I'm looking for, definitely. And being able to make really strong boundaries in terms of what the do's and don'ts are of that agreement, you know. But I also think that there's something in that, because I'm always looking for like the somatic practices as well, right? Like, and kind of like makes me think of like practicing saying no, like how I just need to also, outside of any kind of stakes situation as well, like just need to start practicing saying no more and more, which feels, even in saying it, feels like, but it's like, I've got to do that. I've got to just say no, you know, like when people say no, I don't, and gosh, even when I say it, I feel like I'm saying it like with an aggression that I don't want. It's just like, no, thank you. Or no, I no. But to really embrace that sacred no. And I think that's also something that I've learned from the kind of sacred touch world and sacred sexuality world as well, like that idea of like a full body yes and a full body no, and like really listening to myself as well, you know, and not answering or getting caught in my head and thoughts when it comes to these things as well, and really tuning into like taking a deep breath and feeling how it feels in my body, and being able to say no, that's not going to work for me, and without having to give excuses as well, because that's also a big thing, right? Yeah, without having to excuse myself or explain myself, and just no. It's quite good to be able to reconnect our bodies and our minds, right? Because then it's like, oh no, my body says no. You know, like, and it's like almost, I don't want to use the word blame, but all, you know, but just to be like, oh, I don't have to give you a rational explanation. My body's saying no.
Yeah.
You know, that feels really radical. I really hope I can get better at that.
Yeah, I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that. But that's the thing. The thing is the things that you do and that, you know, things that you manifest, well, you manifest them by being certain of that manifestation, right? By being aligned with your heart. So it's the same way that obviously now you're, you know, because obviously the things that we manifest, or the things that, you know, that we're unable to manifest well for whatever reason that, you know, that's held within our body, we do that because of fear. Right? So if we can then move it, and we can then take that no, or not necessarily a no, a yes for what I want, as opposed to a no for what I don't want. In the same way we manifest well, then we'll understand actually, oh, this is the vibration that I'm working in when I'm doing things that are aligned. So we can become more aware of, oh, actually, I'm not feeling, this doesn't feel good to me. So actually to say yes in this moment would be against what feels good to me, right? Because when things do feel good to me and they do materialize well, actually my whole body's involved in that. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's a very easy way of understanding actually how you do it quite naturally, just by moving into what you manifest naturally, and being able to understand that that's really what we're asking. It's not going against something, but going towards, you know, actually what feels good.
Yes, but I do think that, like, you know, we talk about this as well. It's like, as much like we were talking about it as well with the kind of activism stuff, it's like not to be in the negative, but also to embrace the ability to say no as well.
Yes. But you're saying yes to yourself is my point. You're saying no to them, but really what you're saying is yes to yourself.
Saying yes to that feeling inside, and listening to that intuition, and listening to that energetic vibration that you are. And not coming up with a whole big bloody story in your head about why you should actually, and guilt and all these things that come up as well, right? Oh no, but of course I've got the ability to do this because, you know, I could, you know, I wouldn't actually be living on the street if I don't let them pay the rent money next month, and, you know, and therefore I can just, you know, and it's just like, and it becomes a whole freaking thing, when actually it's just like in your body, it's not even about the money. You've just got a feeling that this isn't a good sign, like whatever, like the way even it's being done, for example, because of course it's never black and white, right? There might be a circumstance where not paying the rent for a month's totally fine, you know, and there has been many and it's been cool, but it's like, no, this is this is a not good feeling that's bigger than just money, right? There's something here that's, and then not hating yourself and blaming yourself for
listening to yourself and that feels like actually there's ease with that. When you're going against someone else, that feels painful. It's like, no, I don't want to go against. But when you're aligning with yourself, that feels heartful. It feels like, okay, that's what I want to teach my children, how to align with themselves. So really that's what it is that you've been misaligned. That's the whole point. You've been trying to make somebody else feel better, like probably your parent, or your grandma or somebody, and that's how we got caught up in these things and then moved away from ourselves. And and now we don't know ourselves, and that's why we then find it so difficult to be like, oh, how do I reject this person rather than how do I accept myself? So that's why that's why this is a great exercise actually, about like, what do we naturally manifest? What is that you just do so well, and how does that feel?
What do I do well, Isabel?
You do so many things so well. I mean, for instance, you have such great ideas and they just manifest almost automatically. Like you just say it and it's here. There's no no, I can't do that. There is no to those. It's yes, yes, yes. In fact, stop everybody. I'm manifesting and birthing a new idea, and it just comes so fluidly. It flows.
Creative stuff, I guess.
Yeah. So, when what are the thoughts behind that? So,
to be honest, I don't really think that there's thoughts. I don't think that there's thoughts. There's no, I mean, it just flows, and they say that thing of inspiration, right? Like it just happens. Oh, that feels a bit trite though. And it doesn't feel like it's very helpful for this conversation.
Well, in some ways it is, because you just accept yourself. You accept that, because there's some people that don't. They look to be creative and they can't be creative because they have a no. No, I can't do that. No, I'm not good enough. No, I'm not able. And they come in their way. So just because this is really easy for you and you say, actually, I'm just in spirit, I'm just inspired, it just goes through me. Actually, that is the way that we're supposed to be working, or the way it's supposed to be. That's the way we naturally work when we're not having these blockages that have come in our way and blocked us.
I guess what it is also is that I don't have the blockage of what is possible, even though, and it's not true that I don't have, of course, we all have blockages around ourselves. Do you know what I mean? So it's not that I haven't had deep imposter syndrome about myself, particularly crossing over from the theatre world into the more spiritual world, and who am I, and lots of things. I mean, and in the theatre world as well, let's not get it twisted. I've many unhelpful, hindering thoughts about my capacity of who I am. But when it comes to projects, so that's the thing. And then those things might come later, the fears of whether I'm good enough or whether I can do, although I am healing those a lot as well, which I'm really grateful for. Lots thanks to Isabel. But I guess it's the idea of a project is different, because I can take it outside of myself as well. And then and where I don't have a blockage is the idea of it's possible, if you can think it, then it's possible, that. And then it doesn't have to be something that already exists, in terms of, why not bring sound healing and yoga together and create chakra yoga, for example, and make that happen. Or,
And the truth is, often your projects are to help other people. They're often for the healing of somebody else. And I think that's what allows for you to be so free, because, the thought is a conscious collective creation. I want to help. And so you're not in the smallness of yourself thinking, how am I going to look in that? Or how am I going to, how's that going to, how am I going to appear to others? You're just like, no, I can see how I can do this. And, and that flow comes through you, and so.
And I think there's also a slight, it's probably my Aries moon, but that just the excitement and the passion to want to make something happen that I'm excited about as well. It's it's like this Lover event that we've just launched now. It's I want to have a flipping amazing conscious party where we have live DJ and shamanic vocals and yoga and and many other magical, wonderful things. And, I want to make that happen, and so I'm gonna, and then later comes in the thing oh, but what if shit. But it's like, yeah. But I don't know how that, I guess it does relate back to what we were talking about in terms of mind creating matter, because it's in terms of like you say, it's what we were talking about in terms of the unconscious, like that it's coming through me, and it's that thing of follow your joy, right, as well. Like, don't try and overthink it, don't try and manifest it too much with your mind, like I will create this, but just allowing it to flow through you. What brings you joy, follow it and believe in it. And bless my family as well, just to allow a bit of love for the bashing as well. Not that it's a bashing, but do you know what I mean? That's also in having had an amazing grandmother who like set up festivals for puppetry around the world, and like went to university, and just like from her generation, just did amazing things and created the puppet center, like when there was no such thing that existed. And she's always done what she believed in and made it happen and manifested it, and so that's also been passed down to me.
Exactly. So it's just, that was what you were programmed. You were programmed to believe that you can, that you're able, and that and that's the thing. The thing is for other people out here that are struggling with creative projects, it's not that you're not capable and that you can't do it, but it's just that you may have blockages. You may not have that framework. Someone may not have taught you that. And so therefore, then, it may be a bit more difficult for you to be able to allow yourself that creative expression. But it is for you to be able, if it's your desire in it, then it's for you. I mean, I say that with everything. If it's truly a desire from the heart, then actually it is for you. And so there's some things that are going to flow from you. And everyone has things that flow. Everyone that's here today will be able to say, this happens for me really easy. I find, that, they may believe, like I attract great partners, and they'll have the experience of attracting great partners. And then somebody else will be like, I just don't know how to do that. I don't have that naturally. So it's, we're all out here just naturally creating some things and finding other things difficult, and that's why, sit with yourself, come back to the root, find out what is it really that's, blocking you, and then move forward in a way where you're accepting yourself and allowing this, allowing that flow to happen. That's really what we're saying here today.
And I do think that nature favors the brave. That's something I always say as well, right? Like, where it's like you go for things. But I also think that, and like this is something I came to, I thought I was living my dream, having my theatre company in the UK, having a physical theatre company and making street theatre, doing this amazing work. But it was also like, and amazing stuff happened with it as well. But it was also too much. Like in the end, I burnt out running that company, right? So it's also that thing of like the universe showing me that it wasn't for me. It's like we also have to listen, right, in terms of that. And there could be many reasons, including my unhealedness around what it is that I think I deserve or what I desire as well. So it's always this dance as well, right? Because it is, again, I go back to that idea of the greater mind creating all, and it's the unconscious and the conscious and the meta and the collective and the ancestral, and all of those things. And then it's like, oh, okay, well that, I mean, and it was for me because it was for me in doing it, but it's like, but I also wasn't going to kill myself doing it as well. It's like there was an ease and a flow, it's also that humility to understand that what is for us. I mean, I'm going off topic now, really, but,
so yeah, basically just like to bring it back, it's like, really mind creates matter and you want to do that heartfully. So, really that's what this episode was about. And this exercise is helping you to create more heartfully. So we're going to wrap that up now, and we're going to move on to meditation. So yes.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful. Yeah, it's really helpful just to spend some time thinking about it and looking at it and figuring out where I'm manifesting and and getting out of the way of myself to let it flow. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay, so finding yourselves in a comfortable position for the meditation. As always, I recommend that you are not driving whilst listening to the meditation. So please stop the podcast at this point and find a moment. It's nice to have the same space in your house that you meditate in, or same place outside. And finding yourself in a comfy position, a sitting position with a straight but relaxed spine is best. But if you struggle, then you can also sit on a chair. And just coming into awareness of your body. Coming into the awareness of all of the sensations within your body. Coming into the awareness of where your body and the earth beneath you are connected to the chair on which you're sitting. Becoming aware of the sensations where your body is in contact with the chair, with the earth, with your clothes. And just allowing your body to relax a little bit more into that surrender. Allowing yourself to just give yourself over to the earth. Allowing yourself to relax into the space around you. Becoming aware of your breath coming into your body. Allowing the breath to come into a softening belly. Allowing the breath to fall into the pit of the stomach. And without any effort or any straining, just allowing the breath to elongate slightly. Allowing the breath to deepen as it enters deep into your belly. Filling your torso, your back, your ribs. And exhaling through the nose, letting it all go. Allowing yourself to stay connected to this beautiful breath as it enters and leaves your body. Allowing yourself to tune in to the sensations that come and go with this breath in and out of the body. Allowing yourself to feel into where in the body your attention is drawn. The larger and the finer sensations within the body. Allowing yourself to become aware of the sounds in the space around you. Allowing yourself to become aware of the beautiful breath as it comes in and out, and how it shifts the sensations within you on the inhalation and the exhalation through the nose without strain or effort. Becoming aware of any thoughts that arise. any feelings within the body, any sensations. Allowing yourself to feel them all as energy waves entering and leaving on the breath. As thoughts arise within you, allowing yourself to see them, to look upon them as vibrations of energy, and to observe them as they come into your mind on the inhalation and exit your mind on the exhalation. Allowing yourself to see these thoughts as clouds passing through your consciousness. Coming back to the breath, coming back to the sensations that are carried on the breath. Where do you feel the inhalation in your body? Where do you feel the exhalation leaving? What is the thought that comes to your mind? How can it leave on the exhalation? Can you watch it float past you? Or does it entangle itself in you in a dance? Where does that thought sit in your body? How does that thought shift with your breath? How does that thought shift as you inhale into it deeper? How does that thought shift as you exhale and move it away? With each new inhalation into the body, becoming aware of the shifting sensations, becoming aware of the shifting thoughts, becoming aware of the shifting feelings, Imagine them playing out like a movie across your mind. Seeing them pass, seeing them float, seeing them expand, seeing them disappear in a puff of smoke. Each thought that finds you, can you allow it to be without judgment, without attachment, without aversion, simply contemplating it as an energetic vibration. Allowing the thoughts to blend with the sensations, allowing the sensations to blend with the sound, allowing the sounds to blend with the feeling, allowing this cosmic dance of energy patterns all part of your divine makeup, not defining you, but part of you. This cosmic dance of energy that you're becoming aware of the smells, becoming aware of the taste in your mouth, becoming aware of all of the feelings in your skin, becoming aware of the sounds around you, near and far, allowing your eyes to slowly blink open, becoming aware of what you see in front of you. bringing your hands to your heart, sending love to yourself, thanking yourself for this daily practice, allowing yourself to know that everything that comes up is for you, and that from this simple practice you are in a deeper relationship with self and spirit, and that is something to be grateful for today. Thank you and bless you. Thank you so much for listening to Embodying Spirit with Tara Love and Isabel Almeida. This podcast is brought to you by Rewire Desire and the Conscious Connection community. Please see the links to our social media and websites in the show notes to connect more and access our other offerings. This podcast is brought to you free of charge to spread the love and light we all so deeply need in these times of transition. If you feel abundant, safe, and in a space to be able to give from, we would deeply appreciate your support to sustain this gift. Please follow the link below to make a donation. If you would like to connect deeper and would consider becoming a more active partner, then please reach out to us. We look forward to you tuning in again with us soon. Love always, Tara and Isabel.